Ceremony by Leslie Marmon Silko tells the story of Teo, a Native American war veteran of World War II who, like many veterans, is suffering from PTSD. We follow his journey exploring his memories, friends, and culture to find healing. Marxism is known to be many things. But at its core, Marxism is much more about the class struggle. Now, what does Ceremony, a book about veterans trying to heal, have to do with Marxism? As it turns out, Marxist perspective allows us to break down the events of ceremony, showing us the meanings behind ceremony. In Ceremony, Silko explores the importance of tradition by showing that mistrust in one's native culture prevents healing while hurting one's own people. This can be analyzed through the fundamentals of Marxist criticism.
While all of the veterans around Teo rely on alcohol as a sort of white medicine, Teo is the only one who still believes in the native traditions. When Teo is entering the tavern, he explains why the vets drink alcohol, saying, "Liquor was medicine, for the anger that made them hurt, for the pain of the loss, medicine for tight bellies and choked up throats." From this, we can see that this group of veterans use liquor as a medicine to help with the pain that came from the war. Liquor is not a traditional way of healing. In the past, warriors joined a scalp society and performed a ceremony to avoid being haunted. Teo's friends use a white man's way of healing, showing a distrust in their own culture's traditional ceremony as a medicine to heal. Teo also drinks liquor like the others in his group, but, unlike his friends, he still somewhat believes in the traditional way. Teo recalls what happened when Rocky started gutting a deer they had caught hunting. When Teo saw he was getting started, he looked at the eyes again. He took off his jacket and covered the deer's head. The people said you should do that before you gutted the deer, out of respect. This shows Teo following the tradition of covering the deer's head out of respect. We can see that he has at least some acceptance towards the traditional way of things. This clash of cultures can be seen as a clash between classes. In Teo's world, the white culture is seen as dominant over the native culture, similar to how the bourgeoisie is seen as dominant over the proletariat in a capitalist world. Rather than use traditional methods of healing, Teo's friends try to use alcohol, a white medicine, in the same way that members of the proletariat may try to become part of the bourgeoisie instead of fighting for the proletariat. This sets up the class struggle characteristic of Marxist criticism that is seen throughout the story.
Because Teo's friends don't embrace the traditional native way of healing through ceremony, but rather chooses alcohol, a white medicine, they're unable to be fully healed from their PTSD. In fact, their lives continue to go downhill as a result of their reliance on white medicine. Harley, Leroy, and Pinky die from side effects of the white man's medicine. They found Harley and Leroy together in the big boulders below the road off Paguay Hill. The old GMC pickup was crushed around them like the shiny metal coffin the Veterans Hall office bought for each of them. As for Pinky, well, Emo was the one. He killed him. Pinky was standing there washing dishes in a pan on top of the stove. The others were sitting around the table drinking. They say there were empty beer cans and wine bottles all over the place. All three of them end up dead. Harley and Leroy pass away from driving under the influence, and Pinky is killed because Emo accidentally shot him while they were all drunk. Emo ends up being forced out of the tribe after shooting Pinky and has to move to California. For all of Teo's friends, alcohol ends up ruining their lives. Drinking alcohol to try to heal is like trying to imitate the bourgeois. They do this because the dominant white culture is successful at so much and they are not. This leads them to the bourgeois way of doing things. Alcohol as a white medicine, thinking that it will be more effective than their own traditional method of healing through ceremony. This abandonment of their own culture and traditions doesn't work and ends tragically.
In contrast to his friends, Teo goes from partially accepting the native culture to fully embracing it. He goes to an old medicine man, Bethany, who guides him through a traditional ceremony that would heal Teo. He walked to the mine shaft slowly, and the feeling became overwhelming. The pattern of the ceremony was completed there. He cried the relief he felt at finally seeing the pattern, the way all the stories fit together. The old stories, the war stories, their stories, to become the story that was still being told. He was not crazy. He had never been crazy. He had only seen and heard the world as it always was. No boundaries, only transitions through all distances and time. Teo completes his ceremony at an abandoned uranium mine, marking the end of his healing process. Because Teo was more open to traditional ideas, he was more willing to do the healing ceremony. When he saw how the stories fit together, the traditional ceremony succeeded. In contrast to his friends, Teo was actually healed. Teo sticking to his culture eventually leads to his success. This parallels the Marxist idea that a person should always stick with their fellow proletariat and fight together in order to succeed. This is the final piece in the Marxist fundamentals that shows us just how important it is to stay with and respect one's own culture and traditions.
In the end, Teo escapes the grasp of dominant culture through a traditional ceremony. This healed him from his PTSD and helped him become a more accepted member of the tribe. His trust in the traditional methods healed and elevated Teo in being accepted like a full-blood. In contrast, Teo's not-so-lucky friends who mistrust traditional native ways of healing end up on a complete opposite side of Teo. They used tools from the dominant culture while Teo used traditional tools. They caused damage to each other while Teo healed. They achieved death while Teo achieved life. Their mistrust in their culture interfered with their healing and brought pain to each other, thus showing the importance of tradition.